There is a triangle in your energy right now, not the comfortable, abstract kind that exists in theory without producing real friction in real lives. The other kind, the kind with three actual people in it, each one carrying their own specific weight of feeling, each one navigating the specific consequences of a situation that has developed beyond what anyone fully anticipated when it began. A triangle with real stakes, real emotions, and one very particular and very important detail that is changing the atmosphere of the entire configuration. The spark between you and your person is not dying. It is not fading. It is not diminishing under the pressure of circumstances or time or the very deliberate efforts of a third party who has invested significant energy in trying to make it do exactly those things. It is, if anything, burning with more intensity and more directness and more obvious heat than it has at any previous point. And the third party, the one who has been watching this spark managing around it, hoping against the evidence that it would eventually burn itself out, is furious. Not quietly furious, not the contained, private, I am managing my feelings furious that a person maintains when they still believe the situation might resolve in their favor if they are patient enough. The other kind, the kind that arrives when patience has been extended past the point where the evidence supports it. When someone who has been telling themselves a story about how things are going to unfold finally encounters enough reality to make the story untenable. When the thing they were waiting to see diminish the connection between you and your person, the specific, undying, apparently inextinguishable spark, not only refuses to diminish but visibly intensifies, that is where the third party is right now. In the furious story collapsing, the evidence has become impossible to argue with place of someone whose position is not as secure as they need it to be. And their fury is, in its own way, the most honest thing they have offered to this situation. It is the involuntary acknowledgement that what exists between you and your person is real, that it has survived everything that was supposed to kill it, that it is, despite all evidence to the contrary of what the third party has been hoping, getting stronger. Subscribe to this channel and drop the word spark in the comments right now. Because what I am about to show you in these cards, the full picture of this triangle, what your person actually feels, what the third party is genuinely experiencing, and what all of it means for what comes next, is going to give you a clarity about this situation that changes how you carry yourself through everything that follows. Let me begin with your person. Because they are the center of this triangle, the person whose choices and feelings and interior experience are the axis around which everything else in this situation rotates, and understanding where they actually are is the most important thing this reading can offer you. They are not where the third party needs them to be. That is the foundational truth and the source of the third party's fury, and the thing your person has been navigating with varying degrees of success and varying degrees of comfort for longer than they would ideally choose. The third party needs your person to be moved on, settled, finished with whatever existed between them and you, present in the alternative they are trying to build with a completeness and a wholeness that leaves no room for the continuing presence of the spark. Your person is not there, and they have tried. I want to give them that. I can feel in their energy the genuine effort, the honest attempt to do what circumstances have seemed to require of them, to be present in what they are supposed to be present in, to give what they are supposed to give, to be where they are supposed to be, without the constant, irrepressible, completely uncooperative awareness of you that keeps surfacing regardless of what they do to redirect it. The redirecting does not work. That is what the spark means. A spark that dies when you stop tending. It is not really a spark. It is an ember that needed maintenance to stay alive. What exists between you and your person is not that. It is something that maintains itself without tending, that persists without encouragement, that surfaces and resurfaces and reasserts itself with the specific stubbornness of something that is rooted in something real, in actual feeling, in genuine connection, in the specific and irreplaceable quality of what the two of you have when you are in each other's orbit. They cannot make it stop. They have tried and it has not stopped, and it is not stopping. And the trying has produced in them a specific and growing exhaustion, with the trying the particular weariness of someone who has been expending significant energy to feel something other than what they feel, and has arrived at the honest, uncomfortable recognition that the energy is being wasted. What does the spark look like from inside their experience right now? Because I want to be precise about this, about the specific quality of what they carry around you, what happens in them when you surface in their thoughts or their life or their field of awareness, what the spark actually feels like to the person who has been trying and failing to extinguish it. It feels like coming home. That is the phrase that keeps arriving when I sit with the energy of their experience of you. Not the romantic fantasy version of that phrase, but the deeply human, profoundly specific version, the particular internal settling of a person who has been slightly away from themselves and encounters the thing that brings them back. You do that for them in a way that nothing and no one else in their current situation does. When you are present in thought, in memory, in the occasional moments when your lives intersect, something in them returns to a version of itself that feels more true than the version that exists in your absence. That returning keeps happening without their permission, without their cooperation, without any encouragement from you or any particular effort on either of your parts. It simply keeps happening because that is what genuine connection does. It persists, it finds its way back, it refuses to be categorized as finished when it is not finished. It also feels like clarity. In a life that has become increasingly characterized by the particular fog of trying to feel what you are supposed to feel and be who you are supposed to be, you represent something that cuts through the fog. When they allow themselves in the private, honest, no performance required moments to actually think about you without managing the thinking, something clarifies their own wants, their own truth, the honest answer to questions about what they actually value and what they are actually drawn to and what their actual life, if it were organized around what is genuinely true for them, would look like. The answer to those questions keeps having you in it, stubbornly, persistently, with the specific reliability of something that is not a fantasy or a nostalgic projection, but an actual, grounded, completely present reality. Now, let me turn to the third party, because understanding their experience not sympathetically, not in a way that validates what they are doing with their fury, but accurately is important for understanding the full picture of what you are navigating. This person is operating from fear. Not the admirable kind of fear, not the fear that comes from loving something genuinely and being afraid of its loss, in the way that real love is always somewhat afraid. The other kind, the fear of someone who knows at some level they are not willing to fully acknowledge that what they are trying to build is not standing on solid ground, that the foundation has a crack in it, that the crack has a name and the name is you. They have known this for a while, known it in the specific way that people know the things they most need to not know, slightly below the surface of full consciousness, available to be accessed in unguarded moments, but carefully managed away from in the moments where managing is possible. The furious energy I am feeling from them right now is the energy of someone for whom the managing has become insufficient, for whom the evidence, the undying spark, the persistence of your person's feeling, the specific quality of the connection between you and your person, that third-party presence has not been able to neutralize, has accumulated past the point where it can be successfully managed away from. They are frightened. The fury is the costume that fear wears when someone is not willing to sit with the fear directly. What are they doing with this fury? This is important because it affects the situation you are navigating and the environment your person is currently in. They are exerting pressure, the specific, targeted, this has to change kind of pressure that frightened people exert when they feel their position becoming less secure. Pressure on your person to demonstrate their commitment, to create more distance from you, to perform a convincing enough version of the moved on narrative that the third party can believe, or at least pretend to believe, that the spark has been addressed. Your person is feeling this pressure. It is one of the primary things they are navigating right now. And the pressure is producing in them a specific and growing conflict between what they are being asked to perform and what is actually true, between the demonstration of having moved on that the third party needs and the reality that they have not moved on in the way that demonstration would require. Let me speak to what your person is going to do with this conflict, because it is the most pressing question in the energy of this reading, and the cards are showing me something specific about the direction things are moving. The conflict is becoming unsustainable. That is the first thing. A person can hold a conflict between what they perform and what they feel for a certain amount of time with a certain amount of effort. But conflicts of this nature between the performed and the genuine, between the expected and the true, have a natural trajectory. They do not stabilize. They escalate. The gap between the performance and the reality grows wider with time rather than narrower, because the reality has its own momentum and the performing becomes more costly as the reality becomes more insistent. Your person's reality, the reality of a spark that is getting stronger rather than weaker, of a feeling for you that persists and deepens regardless of the circumstances, asking it to diminish, is becoming more insistent, more present, more difficult to perform around. And the energy I am seeing in the cards is not the energy of someone who is going to be able to maintain the performance indefinitely. Something is going to give. The question that the cards are not answering with complete certainty, because this is genuinely a moment of choice for your person, and genuine choices have genuine uncertainty built into them, is what gives and in which direction. Whether the conflict resolves toward honesty about what they feel and what they want and the full reckoning that honesty would require, or whether it resolves toward the suppression of the reality in service of the expected narrative. What I can tell you, what the energy of the spark itself is communicating with the force and the persistence of something that has been tested by significant circumstances and has not diminished, is that suppression of something. This real is not a permanent option. Suppressed things do not stay suppressed. They find other expression. They surface in ways that cannot be controlled. They communicate themselves despite the best efforts of the person carrying them to prevent the communication. The spark is going to communicate itself one way or another in your person's choices and their behavior and the specific quality of how they are when they allow themselves to be fully honest. It is already communicating itself to the third party whose fury is the evidence of having received the communication. And it is going to continue communicating itself until it has been fully expressed in the one direction it is actually trying to go. Toward you, I want to speak now to your position in this triangle, not as a passive receiver of what other people decide, but as an active participant with your own perspective and your own needs and your own truth about what this situation is and what you are and are not willing to navigate. You have been patient with the complexity of this situation, with the fact that the person whose spark for you will not die is currently in circumstances that make the full expression of that spark complicated and costly, with the ambiguity of a connection that is clearly real and clearly not simple, and that has been asking you to hold something significant without the clarity of full reciprocation. That patience has value. It is not weakness. It is the specific, hard-earned patience of someone who understands that real things sometimes exist in complicated circumstances and that the complication does not negate the reality. And the patience has been appropriate to the situation, to what the situation has been up until this point. But I want to ask you something, not rhetorically, genuinely, as a question worth sitting with in the honest space of your own interior. How much longer are you willing to be patient? Not as a threat and not as a strategy, as a real and fair question about what you actually want and what you are willing to hold and how long you are willing to hold it without the clarity that the holding deserves. Because your needs in this situation are as real as your person's feelings. Your clarity is as important as their conflict. Your peace is as worth protecting as the spark is worth honoring. You are allowed to have a limit. You are allowed to reach a point where the patience has served its purpose and the situation needs to either resolve towards something that actually works for you or resolve towards something else entirely. That limit is not a betrayal of the connection. It is the appropriate self-respect of someone who knows their own worth. Know your limit, whatever it is for you specifically, and honor it. What is the third party going to do with their fury? Because it is relevant to the immediate future of this situation, and I want to prepare you for the specific ways it is likely to express itself. They are going to push harder on your person with the specific escalating pressure of someone whose fear has converted to desperation. The pressure is going to take forms that are not always comfortable to witness or navigate demands for more explicit demonstrations of commitment, increased attempts to create definitive distance between your person and you, possibly attempts to involve other people or circumstances in service of securing the outcome they are trying to secure. This escalation is going to backfire. I want to say that clearly because these cards are showing me the trajectory with some confidence. Escalating pressure on someone who is already in conflict between what they perform and what they feel does not resolve the conflict in favor of the performance. It resolves it in favor of the feeling. Because pressure, genuine, escalating, fear-driven pressure strips away the management and the patience and the careful navigation and leaves the person being pressured with nothing but their most honest truth. And your person's most honest truth is the spark. The third party's escalation is going to bring that truth closer to the surface rather than further from it. Their fury, however uncomfortable and however disruptive to the current configuration, is actually accelerating the timeline toward the moment when what is real can no longer be contained by what is expected. Let me tell you what the cards are showing me about the shape of what is coming, not as a promise and not as a guarantee, because human beings make choices, and choices have genuine uncertainty built into them, and any honest reading acknowledges that. But as the direction the energy is moving, the trajectory of the forces currently in play, the most likely shape of what unfolds if the energy continues in the direction it is currently going. What I see is a moment of truth, a specific, real, no more managing moment when your person is going to have to say something honest to the third party, to themselves, or to you, possibly to all three, about what is actually true, about what the spark is and what it means, and what the honest accounting of their own heart requires them to acknowledge and act on. That moment is being accelerated by the third party's fury, by the pressure that is stripping away the management, by the escalating impossibility of continuing to perform a narrative that has less and less connection to the reality. And what comes after the moment of truth, what these cards are showing me on the other side of the honesty that is building toward its expression, has the quality of something that has been compressed for a long time, finally being given room to breathe, of a connection that has survived every attempt to extinguish it, finally being in circumstances where it can exist openly, of a spark that never died, being given the oxygen it has been burning without for too long. That is the direction the energy is moving. The third party's fury is not the obstacle it presents itself as. It is, in the particular irony of situations like this, the accelerant. Let me close with what I most want you to carry from this reading into the days ahead. The spark is real, not as a consolation or a participation trophy for a connection that exists in difficulty, as an actual, verifiable, third-party fury-producing reality. Someone who has every reason and every incentive and every circumstantial pressure toward letting go of what they feel for you has not let go, cannot let go, is carrying a spark that is getting stronger rather than weaker, despite conditions designed to weaken it. That is not nothing. That is the specific, hard evidence of something genuine, of a connection that has been tested by real circumstances, by time and pressure, and the very concrete presence of someone trying to replace it and has not been replaced, cannot be replaced, because what is real cannot be substituted by something that is expected. What you do with that reality is yours to determine, in the clarity of your own honest interior, with full awareness of your own needs and your own limits and your own truth about what you want this to look like and what you are willing to navigate to get there. But know what the reality is, know it clearly, know that the spark is real and that it is getting stronger, and that the fury of the third party is the most honest confirmation you could have, that what you and your person have is not something that time or circumstance or the presence of someone else has been able to address. It has survived everything. That is what real things do. Tell me in the comments, does this triangle match your current situation? Drop spark if this reading describes something you have been living without having had it reflected back to you this clearly. Tell me if you have been sensing the fury of the third party in the ways it has been expressing itself. Tell me if you have been feeling the spark from your person despite the circumstances that were supposed to have extinguished it. Because what you have been feeling is real.